All right. So, again, I'm repeating the title of my talk. We are going to look at what are the recent advances that can help our children who have autism and cerebral palsy. I am Dr. Alok Sharma. I am the director of the Neurogen Brain and Spine Institute. This institute has been set up specifically for one purpose only, and that is to help children and adults with neurological problems recover from a comprehensive group of treatments. So, all the possible treatments that are there to help our children, we have them all together in our institute. I'm also professor and head at the Department of Neurosurgery at the Medical College. So, I wish to make a sort of disclaimer that this presentation is for information purposes only. It is not a substitute for medical consultation, for which a patient should consult their local doctors. And we gratefully acknowledge Stem Cell Africa and the parents in Africa who invited us to make this presentation. Um, Andine, are you online? You want to say hello? Is Andine from Stem Cell Africa online? Andine, are you connected? Would you like to say something? Okay, I think I'll begin. Okay, just leave it.
It's not going to take long, it's a minute. Wow.
Hello, Andine, would you like to say hello?
We are just waiting, doctor, because we are struggling with sound.
Okay, so just say hello to the audience so then I can carry on with my talk. Yeah,
Okay, I'm going to try.
just
I just want to say hello to everyone and thank you for being here today. Thank you for taking your time and effort, and also thank you for being at our first meeting after lockdown. It is really a privilege to have the parents back, and myself as a parent is a privilege to being with you. So, yes, thank you, Doctor. It's really nice to have you back and to have you back in our audience, and it's always a privilege to have you with us.
all right. All right, we'll go ahead. So can I go ahead? Yeah. Uh,
Yes.
So, why are we all here? We've all gathered here because all of us have special needs children. We have, gone from pillar to post trying to help them. And we are here for one reason only. We want to see in which way we can help our special needs children. And all of you saw the video of Mercy and her three lovely children who have benefited from stem cell therapy. So, I just want to. So, what has happened is that um, I need this off. So, what is the current situation? You have, you know, we've been told that there is no cure, there are no surgical interventions, there is only rehab available, and there are no medicines for our special needs children. This is what we've been told. And what is new is a better understanding. So on the screen, as you can see, whatever is blue here is brain that is damaged. Whatever is green is normal. And as we go on in the talk, I want to let you know that this damage is correctable. So the new information that you will go out with today is that this damage is correctable. All right. So I need this off from here. I can't get this out of the way. I'm sorry, we're having some problem with our video. Okay. So, all right. I apologize. We've got a screen back. So the point I want to make is that there are multiple treatments available today, and what I'm going to talk to you about, stem cell therapy, is one of them. Our understanding over the last 10 years is that a combination of cell therapy, along with rehabilitation, along with integrative therapies, together can help our children recover, get back independent living, go back to an education system, and be able to have a vocation and independent lives. So remember, our talk is about three aspects: cell therapy, rehabilitation, and integrative treatments. And we're going to discuss all this in detail. So, as you can see, the slides above, whatever is blue, what you can see, this is the damage part. And here you can see that the damage has recovered after our treatment. So the example I like to give is on the left hand side, you can see this is a X-ray of a fracture of the leg. And here the bone is broken. You can see it's broken. And I ask you, God forbid, if we or our children had a fracture of the leg, would we give rehabilitation on a broken bone? Would you give physiotherapy on this broken bone? We wouldn't, right? What we would do is we would go to an orthopedic doctor, he would fix it with plate and screws, and then we would give exercises and rehabilitation to our child. However, for autism and CP, we are doing exactly the opposite. This is a scan of a child with autism, where the blue part is the part that's damaged, not working properly. And today, we are all giving rehabilitation on this damaged brain. In other words, we are asking our children to do things their brain cannot do. This is very important. It's very important to understand what we are doing now. We want our child to have a normal living. So we keep on pushing our child to talk, to have behavioral changes, to read, to get educated. And we are doing this on a brain that is damaged, that cannot do so. Okay. Now, what if this damaged brain, we changed it into functioning brain? You can see here, the brain has started functioning. And on a functioning brain, we gave a rehabilitation. Wouldn't the results be better? And I'm here to tell you that we no longer need to give rehabilitation on a damaged brain. We can repair the brain. That's what I'm here to talk to you about. So the old thinking was that the central nervous system is incapable of regeneration. Okay. But the new thinking is that some regeneration is possible through cellular replacement and repair. So stem cell therapy is an idea whose time has come. And basically what it does, it shifts us from a state of hopelessness to one of hope. And that's what we are here for today. At the end of this talk, you will have shifted from a state of hopelessness to one of hope. The word stem comes from the stem of a tree or a stem of a plant. And just like the stem of a plant gives rise to leaves and flowers and fruits, etc., there are some cells in the body that can give rise to any cell of the body. So a cell which can become a brain or a muscle or a blood cell, that cell is called a stem cell. A cell which can become anything. Just like from the stem, you can get leaves, flowers, and fruits. So there are different types of stem cells. They are broadly autologous or allogenic. Autologous is when we take from the body and put it back in the body, and this is what we use at Neurogen. And donor is when you take from somebody else and put it back. We prefer autologous because they are safer, and we have seen that the results are better because the body accepts it better. So stem cells have the ability to repair, to replace, and to regenerate. And when they do that, healing of damaged tissues happens. I like to show this a small clip from what Stephen Hawking, who was one of our greatest living scientists, said about stem cell. I mean, not living; he's not living anymore. One of the greatest scientists ever. After Einstein, we believe that Stephen Hawking was one of the greatest scientists this planet has ever had. One of the greatest scientists had to say about stem cells that we are on the brink of a new era in the field of science, where we will be able to heal our body of all illnesses from cells within us, and these are called stem cells. So, how stem cells work? The first quality of stem cells is they have the ability to multiply. So, if you have a single stem cell that can multiply and grow into thousands of stem cells. Second, they differentiate. So, when a stem cell multiplies, it makes a copy of itself, but it can also convert into any other cell type. This is what makes stem cells different, their ability to become any other cell. So the same stem cell can become a brain cell, it can become a muscle cell, it can become a liver or a blood cell. And how do we make that happen? It depends on where you put it. So if I take a stem cell and put it into the brain or into the or the fluid in the brain, it becomes into a brain cell. If we put it into a muscle, it becomes a muscle cell. So that is the quality of cells, that we can make it into whatever we want. So when they do that, they also repopulate the target tissue and make new connections. So this peculiar ability, of special ability to become anything that we want, this is the property we use to help for healing of our children. And what we will do is we will make these stem cells into brain or nerve cells. And this picture is from our own research. This is not a picture from the internet. This small thing that you see, this is what a stem cell looks like. And when we grow artificially outside, we recreate the body's brain environment. These stem cells, within a period of 6 weeks, have converted into these cells, which are nerve-like cells. You can see these are not only nerve cells, but they are cells which are connecting to each other. So before we started treating patients, and this was over 10 years ago, we first proved that stem cells can become brain cells. The other effect of stem cells is what is called a paracrine effect, where they release certain positive chemicals in the body, and these positive chemicals, they help in the healing process. They also improve the blood supply to the areas where they go. And this is a scientific slide which shows all the beneficial effects. They prevent cellular death, they help in the immunity, they differentiate, and they improve the overall cell functioning. There are different types of cells, and it's important to understand this, because when you Google and when you talk to your doctors, they sometimes talk negative things about stem cells. What you have to understand is the reason of that is people don't understand that there are different types of stem cells, and some stem cells are very safe and very effective, and some are not. So the first type of stem cell is that from the embryo. Now we all know that life starts when the father's sperm and mother's egg comes together. When it comes together, it forms what is called a fertilized egg, and then this keeps on multiplying. And at 5 days, it is a grape-like bundle of cells called the blastocyst. These are stem cells. So all of us in the audience, me, all of us, we started our life on the fourth or fifth day of our life. We were a bundle of stem cells in our mother's womb. Now, if these are taken out, if these are removed in spare embryos of test tube babies or abortion, etc., you can actually grow these into whatever you want and use them. However, these embryonic stem cells have ethical issues about it. They're also potentially dangerous. They have a lot of risks. So I wish to state that we do not use embryonic stem cells. I'm repeating again. We do not use embryonic stem cells. The second type of stem cell is from the umbilical cord. So when the child is born, the child is connected to the mother through the umbilical cord, which is cut to separate the child. This umbilical cord has also got a lot of stem cells, and if this has been preserved, you can take those stem cells and use for the child. But we are not using this either. what we use is something called adult stem cells. They are called adult stem cells, but they are present in children also. And they are present in two or three places. One is in the bone, the second is in the fat. Now, we prefer to take in the bone because from the bone it is very easy to get. Just a simple needle prick, and we can take out the liquid inside the bone, which is called bone marrow, which has got millions of stem cells. So, whatever I'm going to talk about is from this. This is what we use. And the last, called induced pluripotent stem cells, this is a combination where the outside is adult and inside is embryonic, but this is still in the research stage only. So I wish to state very clearly, we do not use outside cells. We use cells from the patient only, from the child only, and these are adult stem cells. So comparing the dangers of of embryonic stem cells to adult stem cells is like comparing the danger of alcohol to homemade orange juice. They are two completely different things. They are both beverages, but they are completely different. So, whatever negativity you hear about stem cells is about embryonic stem cells, which, like alcohol, are dangerous. What we use is cells from the own body, which is like homemade orange juice and is very safe. So, we work with adult stem cells because they are safe, they never form tumors, they don't get rejected. You can easily get them from a needle prick, and there are no ethical issues about its use. Now, how do we inject the stem cells? There are different ways of doing it. We prefer the intrathecal route with a very thin needle. We inject it into the spinal fluid. Why in the spinal fluid? Because the spinal fluid takes it all the way to the brain. All right. So this is what we prefer, but different people inject differently. Some inject into the artery, some through the nose, some directly into the brain, some in the muscle. This also we use for a disease called muscular dystrophy, or you can inject in the artery. So there are different ways in which you can inject, but we prefer the intrathecal. But and all of these are through a needle, so there's no surgical intervention involved. So we prefer intrathecal because you can just put a needle in the back, it goes directly up. There are no side effects. It's very safe, and we are sending the cells directly into the brain. So stem cell therapy basically, fundamentally, what it is, we are using healthy cells, we are using good cells from our child itself, and we are helping to replace the damaged cells. So this is a scan of a child with autism. The blue is damage. We put the stem cells, and the damage goes away. Yeah. So what's the scientific base for stem cell therapy? As you're aware, the most prestigious award in medicine is the Nobel Prize, and three times, in the last 20 years, 1990, 2007, and 2012, the Nobel Prize has gone to stem cell work. And the work that we do, use stem cells and bone marrow. This actually got the Nobel Prize in 1990. So the science of this is well established. What's the scientific basis of the work that we do? So all our work is published in scientific journals. We have a total of 101 papers. That's the largest number of scientific papers from any one institute on stem cells and neurological disorders. So all our results are in the public domain. They have been published in scientific journals. What is the importance of this? See, how do you know what I'm saying is the truth or not? I could be saying anything. I could Photoshop images. I can do anything I want. Okay, and I'm saying the truth when my results have been peer reviewed. Peer reviewed means the other doctors who the doctors who the journal selects, they review my results, they authenticate its validity, its scientific content, the ethical base. Only then it gets published in a scientific journal. So, whenever you go to any doctor for stem cell therapy, it's very important that you should ask whether their work is published in scientific journals. If their work is published in scientific journals, it means somebody outside, apart from them, has validated the results. All right. So we have not just one or two, but as you can see, we have 16 papers on autism, 15 on cerebral palsy, and all the others as well. So apart from that, now in medical textbooks, so this is a textbook on autism, recent advances in autism, and they have introduced a chapter, stem cell therapy in autism, and they asked us to write it. So we have written this publication. There is a book on cerebral palsy. This is a European textbook by Intech. Again, they've introduced a chapter, stem cell therapy for cerebral palsy, and they asked us to write this chapter. There is a book on physical disabilities, therapeutic implications, and they asked us to write the chapter on stem cell therapy in pediatric neurological disabilities. So we wrote this chapter. In other words, medical textbooks. I've now introduced chapters on stem cell therapy, and whenever they look all over the world, see all these books have international authors from all over the world. When it comes to who will write the chapter on stem cell therapy, they approach us because we have the world's largest experience. There's this book on muscular dystrophy published by Avid Science. Again, stem cell therapy in muscular dystrophy. We have written this chapter. Now, in India, the government at the highest level is very supportive of stem cells. Our Prime Minister, Sri Narendra Modi, when he went to Japan, he visited the stem cell laboratory of Professor Yamanaka, who won the Nobel Prize. And in India too, whenever he gets a chance, he visits a stem cell institute. So he's been a supporter of this work. This is a book, in one of the books that I have written, our Prime Minister has written an introduction. It is not very often that somebody of his stature will write an introduction for a medical book, and yet he has done that for one of our books, and that is me presenting a copy of that book to him. And this is the introduction that he wrote. You can see it's in our regional language, Gujarati, and he has written this introduction.
मैं जापान गया, तो जापान मेरे कार्यक्रम में मैंने एक कार्यक्रम क्या जोड़ा, मैं वहां एक नोबेल लॉरिएट साइंटिस्ट यामाहा को मिलने गया। मैं इसलिए किया गया कि उन्होंने स्टेम सेल के अंदर जो रिसर्च की है, मैंने जितना पढ़ा था तो मेरे मन में आया था शायद इनकी एक खोज हमारे काम आ सकती है क्या है। हम गए तो वहां गए, उनसे चर्चा की, और बेंगलोर के हमारे साइंस इंस्टीट्यूट के साथ आज उस दिशा में हमारा काम हो रहा है कि स्टेम सेल्स के द्वारा हमारे युवा साइंटिस्ट कुछ खोज करें।
So this is our Prime Minister. He's talking in Parliament, and this is the Indian Parliament, and you can see that he's giving a talk on stem cells in the Indian Parliament. So that is how important he considers this field to be. All right, so now let's see how this treatment is done. So the beauty of this treatment is the simplicity. There is no surgery involved. There is no cutting involved. There is no stitching involved. There is no intensive care involved. There are no lines or tubes or anything else. The entire treatment has got only 2 injections, 2 needle pricks. And what are they? What we do is we put a needle into the bone. This is the pelvic bone, is just above the hip bone. And we put a needle into that and we aspirate the bone marrow. This takes about 20 minutes. The child is sedated, is sleeping, and we give local anesthesia. So there is no pain. We then take the bone marrow to a laboratory where we sort of filter it. We run it in machines called centrifuges, and we separate the stem cells. And moment we have the stem cells, with a very thin needle, we inject it into the fluid in the back. That is the cerebrospinal fluid, and the stem cells are injected. So the whole treatment, with one needle we aspirate, and with one needle we put back. Only 2 needle pricks. And what are we putting inside the child? His own cells. There is nothing artificial. There is no chemical, no agent, no drug. We are taking our good cells and putting it back into our cells to help and heal through 2 needle pricks. So that's the beauty of the treatment, the sheer simplicity. And because it's so simple, it also becomes extremely safe. There are no side effects that you would have with a major surgical intervention or by using a strong or a powerful drug. This is biological healing. So it's simple and it is extremely safe. So let's see a video of how this is done. You can see here the bone marrow is coming out. The child is sleeping. We take it to a laboratory. We spin it through centrifuges, separate it later, and then these are machines that tell us the cells, and then through a very thin needle, we inject it back. I'd like to show this video twice. Again, you can see, I'm repeating the video. You can see the bone marrow coming out. We take it to a laboratory. We separate it, and then once the stem cells are there, with a very thin needle, we inject it back. 2 needle pricks. That's all. That's all there is. Yeah. So again, bone marrow aspiration, stem cell separation, and injection. So now let us look at the role of stem cells in autism. Now, as you can see here, the incidence of autism is going through the roof. In 2004, 1 in 166 children had it, whereas in 2018, it's gone up to 1 in 59, a 3 times increase, okay, in 15 years. There has never been a disease or illness in children which has increased so rapidly over time. So, which means there are about 70 million people on the spectrum on our planet, which is 1% of the world's population. You know, most people don't realize that 1% of the world's population has autism. There is something fundamentally wrong in the way we are living our lives that autism is increasing so rapidly across the years. So, what exactly is autism? We know it's a neurodevelopmental disorder. It was first described in 1943. It is normally diagnosed in the first 3 years of life. We now refer to it as a spectrum disorder where it could be mild, moderate, or severe, and boys have it 4 times more than girls. The symptoms basically are a problem with communication, social interaction, and repetitive behavior. So, these symptoms occur in different forms and combinations. So, what is new? Or what is new about this that you should be attending this webinar? First, our understanding of autism is better. And now we have a new treatment, stem cell therapy, which, when combined with a whole lot of other treatments, actually helps in getting our children back to a normal life. So, you know, earlier it was believed that autism is a psychiatric disorder due to emotional disturbances. This was Bettelheim in 1967. But today, it is believed to be a disorder of prenatal, postnatal brain development. So it's not a psychiatric disorder anymore. It's a problem of brain development. Next, it was believed to be a static disorder, but now we realize that it's a developmental disorder which shows progressive changes in the brain. So it's not static; it's actually continuing, and I'm going to talk more about that later. Earlier, we had no information. What's happening in the brain? We just saw a child, we saw the symptoms, and made a diagnosis. But today, we know there is stuff happening in the brain. There are changes in the volume and the function of the brain, and we'll share with you some of our own research on this. So the fundamental problem, is what parents keep asking themselves: Why did my child have autism? You know, and let's look at that a little briefly. So there are different factors that can cause autism, and we will look at each of these. The first is prenatal and antenatal causes. So the mother's physical and emotional health is extremely important if we want to prevent autism. We have seen that any infection in the mother, diabetes in the mother, a mother who has polycystic ovarian disease or mothers who smoke, the incidence of autism is more. But most important, what we are now realizing is that emotional state of the mother is important. A mother who's depressed, a mother who's anxious during pregnancy, a mother who's taking psychiatric medications is more likely to have a child with autism. So the health of the mother, physical and emotional, is so very important. Then, of course, the age of the father. It is seen that a father at 45 years is 3.5 times more likely to have a child with autism than a father at 24. So nowadays, what we are finding is that, of course, all of us, because of work and profession and stresses, we are having children later than when we used to. People are marrying at a later age and having children at a later age. So an old age of the father becomes extremely important. So it's better to have children at a younger age. Then the GI, there's a connection between the gut and the brain. And 9 out of 10 children with autism have some problem with the GI tract. And we now there is a science through which we can explain how and why this connection. We'll talk about it later. Now, this is something people are not aware of, that exposure to electromagnetic fields, especially mobile phones, can affect the brain of the developing child. All right. So nowadays, everybody's on the mobile all the time, and the radiation from the mobile, if it is close to your body, can affect the brain of the developing child. There is research on this. There are some scientific papers on this as well, and we know also how it happens. The radiation from the phone, it actually affects something called the blood-brain barrier. The blood-brain barrier is the security guard of the brain. The brain is the only organ in the body that has a security guard. The heart, the liver, the kidney, the muscles, whatever, they don't have a security guard. whatever's in the blood goes directly into them. But the brain doesn't let anything enter. It's got a protection system which is called the blood-brain barrier, and the radiation from mobile phones affects that. So the security system of the brain gets taken away. So now any toxin in the blood, anything unpleasant in the blood can directly enter the brain. So now we know how exposure to mobile phone radiation affects the brain. Lead is supposed to be something very important. We find a lot of our children with autism have elevated levels of lead. And in fact, there was a study done by an Australian university in India, which actually showed that high degrees of lead caused intellectual disability. And the sources of this are from various things. They are from, paints, etc., including food. So we found that in India, one of the most popular brand of noodles that almost 9 out of 10 children had very elevated levels of lead. So fast food, junk food that we eat from outside can have all these higher levels. Mercury is believed to be something else that can possibly cause autism. Also, aluminium. And in Africa, we are noticing that those countries where there is extensive mining, and where so when you do mining, metals and minerals that were meant to be below, they come up onto the surface. They sometimes mix with the water supply system. That gets into the mother, and then that gets into the child. So now this is a very controversial area. In 1998, Dr. Wakefield published a paper that showed that the preservatives used in vaccines could cause autism. But this was very controversial. It was opposed a lot by the medical community. And then there were 25 other papers that said that there is no correlation. So this is a slightly controversial area. Our advice, of course, is that we should not stop vaccinating our children, because if the risk of not vaccinating is higher than the risk of vaccinating. Now, what is new is that we now have scans called PET-CT scans, which actually show which parts of the brain are damaged. So what you see on the scan, the blue area is damaged brain, weaker brain, less functioning brain, and because this scan shows metabolism. When the brain is functioning less, it appears blue. Now, we have done in more than 2,500 children of autism, we have done the scan. In over 2,000 children of cerebral palsy, we have done the scans, and every single child had this blue. Whereas on the other hand, normal children do not have this blue. So now, for the first time in medical history, we know what the problem with our child is. There is a part of the brain that's not working completely. And that is why our child cannot speak. That is why our child is hyperactive and has behavioral disorders. So now we know, and when you come to us, one of the first things we do is we do these scans and we document what is the problem in the brains of our children. And this is our paper. This is one of the world's first papers where this was documented. We published our results in the World Journal of Nuclear Medicine. We showed what are the changes in the brains of these children. Now we found something interesting in our research. The blue line. So this is a SUV value, which is it's a value of how much the brain is working. Below is the years. So this is 2 years, 0, 8, 5 years of age, 10 years, 15 years. The blue is normal children. So you see normal children, they, if you start tracking their brain their brain function keeps on increasing over a period of time. But children with autism, their brain function keeps on decreasing. Now this we did not know till our research. We always thought that, it's less, but it is the same. But we've noticed that it actually decreases over time as compared to children, which increases. Now, why is this important? This is important because, see, if you treat your child here, see, what do we want in our children? We want our children's brain, which is functioning less, to start functioning normal. So if I treat here, I have to bridge only this gap. But if I treat here, I have to bridge this gap. So the later we do the treatment, the more difficult it is, the more challenging it is, and therefore we get lesser results. But there's something very fascinating in this slide. I don't know if you've noticed. Look at this. Our children with special needs children start off higher than normal kids. They start off higher. Their brains have greater functioning earlier on in life, then it keeps on deteriorating. Okay. So if we could reverse this, they actually land up having special skills and abilities that normal children may sometimes not have. So this is part of our research, And the management of autism now, like I told you in the beginning, is multidisciplinary. So there is no silver bullet. You can't say, okay, I'll take stem cells, my child will become okay. No, it doesn't work like that. You have to combine it with different aspects of rehabilitation. We have to have diet control. We have to use other treatments like hyperbaric oxygen, etc. So to get our child back to normal, this is the first thing I have to tell you. It is not one thing. We all look for that one magic thing which will make our child okay. Well, here's the bad news. The bad news, there's no one thing, but there's good news that a combination of treatments can help our child. And this is the combination. So I'll just briefly introduce. There is, of course, applied behavioral analysis, ABA, which believes that behavior has something that precedes and something that there's a consequence of. And if you modulate what precedes and the consequence, you can change behavior. This is done by psychologists. Then there's occupational therapy, which has a whole lot of things like focus on activities of daily living, social skills, vocational rehab, etc. Then there's sensory integration therapy, which is again very useful because a lot of our children have sensory issues, and this is what a sensory integration room looks like. This is a SI room at our hospital. There is speech therapy, and again here there is a shift in speech therapists. Earlier the thing was speech is important, and now the thing is communication is important. It doesn't matter if the speech is a little less or more. The child should be able to communicate with speech, with full speech, normal speech, partial speech. So that's the change. Then earlier it was believed that physiotherapy has no role, but what we are finding, because our focus was so much on the cognition, on the thinking, on the memory, what we have to understand is that they have physical problems as well, and they need physiotherapy. We have found aquatic therapy to be extremely useful. So these children, when you give them therapy in water, they get excellent results. So we have to combine aquatic therapy. Then there is art-based therapies. There's music therapy, drama therapy, and there's hyperbaric oxygen, which I'm going to talk about in some time. There is neurofeedback, where the child's brain waves are connected to a computer, and there is a feedback that happens. We have to sometimes remove heavy metals like chelation, TRS, detox, etc. There are supplements, the use of vitamin B6, vitamin C, omega 3, DMG, prebiotics, and other things. And all these are useful. All these are useful in their own way, and together they make the difference. Diet is extremely important. Basically, there are foods not to eat and foods to eat. So probiotics, prebiotics, a ketogenic diet, gluten-free, casein-free diet, vitamin-rich diet. So these are things that we must have. And the foods to avoid are, things that have high sugar levels, additives and pesticides, things that are genetically, modified, and hard to digest starches. So a ketogenic diet is one which is high in fat, has just enough protein and low carbohydrates. And this is a very important tool because we find a lot of kids actually improve on a ketogenic diet. But despite this, are we doing enough? And despite this, our children still have. So what I've spoken to you, many of you are doing all of that. You're saying, but my child still can't talk. My child still has behavioral issues. I can't get him to a normal school. We understand that. So there is still an unmet medical need. And that is where the role of stem cells comes. So this is our data from about 700 patients, which is analyzed. We've treated over 2,500 patients, but we have to wait for a year, 2 years to analyze the results. So we have found 33% of our kids have a significant improvement. That means they are now neurotypical. What is the meaning of this? They are no more in a special school. They are going to normal schools. They are getting educated. They're going to college. They're independent. They don't need special care. That's 33% of our patients. 29% of our patients have a moderate improvement. That means they've become independent, but they still have some symptoms and they still will need some degree of special care. 25% of our kids have a mild improvement. That means they improve in some of their symptoms, like the hyperactivity becomes less, they get some speech, but they still need rehab, they still need special care. And about 10% of our patients do not improve. So there is no improvement, they remain the same. They don't worsen, but they do not improve either. Now, you'll say, well, how do I know where will my child come? So we will also, when we analyze the data, we of course wanted to know, we are particularly interested in who is this 33% that's improved, becoming normal, and more. We want to know what is this 10% that didn't improve. And we found something very interesting. What we found was there was an age correlation. So all these kids who improved, they were below about 11 years. And actually more than age, we found it was before puberty. So when we treat our autism kids before puberty, before 11 years, puberty is a time when a boy becomes a man, they get hair and, a mustache, and their sexual organs develop, their voice changes. That's the age. In girls, it is, of course, when the menstrual cycle starts. So what we find is treat before that, and we can get excellent results. The mild and moderate, is the age between about 11 and 20. And all these who did not improve, the 10%, they were all over 20 years of age. So there is an age correlation. The earlier we treat, the better results we get. Okay, and this is true of any disease. Take cancer. You take cancer, you treat early, you can completely cure it. But if the same cancer patient comes in a late stage, we can't help it. So all diseases, when you treat early, you get a wonderful result. When you treat late, you don't get the same result. So these are the percentage improvement of symptoms from the social behavior, emotion, speech, behavioral issues, sensory, cognition, hyperactivity, attention, eye contact. You can see the percentage of improvement, which is all significant. So on what is the base? I'm here talking to you and saying stem cell therapy works for autism. How can I say that? I can say that if there's a statistical significance to my data, number one, and if there is objective improvements on brain scanning. So this, not everybody will understand, but we have these figures, the statistics here, the Z-statistic, the p-value, and these are scores. CGI and ISA is the Indian score for autism. We take an average before stem cell therapy of all the patients. We take an average of all the patients after stem cell, and this has to be mathematically significant, which it is. Same on the ISA scale itself. Also, if you see this, all the different emotional response, speech, behavior, etc. If you see before and after, this is all statistically significant. And also, we have scans. We have over 2,000. I'm going to show you 2 or 3, but we have 2,500 scans that show that the damage before. This is the same child. We are seeing the scan in 3 cuts. This is horizontal, this is vertical, and this is a lateral cut. So you can see the damage here, and this and this and this is the same. And below is 6 months later. And you can see that this damage is almost completely gone. You can see that this damage is almost completely gone. You can see that this is significantly reduced. So this is a very important slide. I want you to look at this slide. I want this slide to go into your minds. Above what you see is the brain damage that is there in all our children with special needs. Should you come to India, we will first do this and show you. After we do the stem cell therapy, you can see that the brain damage gets corrected. So for the first time in medical history, we can actually correct this brain damage using a combination of stem cells, rehabilitation, and now our newer integrative treatments. So look at this slide. Let this go into your mind. Let this go into your subconscious. Because your child presently has a brain like this. Okay, with all this blue, which is damaged or weak or not functioning. And I'm telling you that we can reduce this damage. That's what I'm telling you. And this is another picture of the same thing. You can see above this whole blue, and you can see after the treatment, stem cell treatment, it is gone. You can see here again the blue, and you can see after the treatment, this blue is gone. All right. So I'm just showing you 2 or 3, but like I said, we have over 2,500 such scans before and after. Almost all of them are showing some degree of improvement. And of course, some parents ask us, how do you know that you're doing scans at 6 months? How do we know this doesn't go away? I mean, it comes back to blue. So in a few parents who are willing, we did this year after year. You can see 2012, 13, 14. And we showed that this improvement is progressive. So you can see this is the damage before in 2012, and you can see in 13, and you can see in 14, still less. So the improvement that you see after stem cells is sustained. It continues over the years. It does not come back. So once you have an improvement, that improvement is there to stay. So our work is published in a prestigious journal, the Stem Cell International, and it is the world's first international PubMed index paper on stem cell therapy in autism. It has come from us. You can see autologous bone marrow mononuclear cell therapy and open label proof of concept. And this is the world's first paper. The second paper came from China, the third paper from Italy, and the fourth and fifth paper have come from America. So we are the leaders in this. We showed the way to the world that how this is to be done. And now the rest of the world, from China, Italy, America, everywhere, they are following what we are doing. We have, in addition to that, we have 14 other papers. That was the world's first paper, but we have 14 other papers as well. Now, a question people ask is, can we combine it with other treatments? And the answer is yes. You can combine stem cell therapy with any treatment that you're undergoing, whether it's hyperbaric or chelation or TRS or biomedical or whatever. Whatever is going on can continue. So it doesn't come in the way of anything else. And, we have short videos from children from all the 5 continents, just one child each. But I think we've already seen the triplets from Africa, so I'm going to skip that. Let's just see this child from the United States. He's a 10-year-old boy diagnosed with autism from Kentucky. He underwent stem cell therapy.
I couldn't get him to engage with me. I couldn't get him to give me eye contact. Over time, he started to lose a lot of vocabulary. Right around 18 months to the age of 2 years, he just slid backwards.
He would flap like that, and he would walk on his tiptoes, look at the wall and be talking to the wall. He had problems with eye contact. He'd never look you straight in the eye. He had problems with his speech. Some research and found out about neurogen. And the big question that I had in my own mind was, what is there to lose? And I could not come up with a good answer. And I said, we have to do it.
We started seeing better eye contact, definitely a difference in his engagement with us, with his sibling, his mood. He was so much calmer. Now he's all about taking his own shower. I have to just prompt him to get out, but he'll wash himself and he'll put his clothes on. Saw the PET scan images. I can't tell you the word, we were just so excited and thrilled. The areas that were hypoactive or non-active were warm. There was activity there. Ganesh has gone from the 3rd grade, 4th month reading level to a 7th grade, 1st month reading level in 5 months.
So that's the kind of improvement one can actually have. A child who was in a special school, who had no speech, is now talking normally, is in a regular school and standing first in the school, getting A pluses. I mean, let's see this other kid, the child from India. He was hyperactive, with poor understanding, poor.
Shantanu was my first child, so I was very excited about how he would be. But when I came to know that my child has a problem, it shocked me and I wondered, why did this happen only to me?
Shantanu's behavior was very different from that of other normal children. For example, normal children walk on their feet, but Shantanu walked on his toes.
It has been 2 months since Shantanu's stem cell therapy. There have been many changes and many improvements. His hyperactivity has reduced drastically, and his attention span has improved a lot. He sits patiently in one place. He has started coordinating with his sister very well. He plays with her very affectionately. We are glad we took the decision to give him stem cell therapy. It has been 6 months since the stem cell therapy. Shantanu has shown a lot of improvements. His hyperactivity is almost as good as non-existent. His handwriting has become much better. His eye contact has also become better. I have never seen Shantanu dancing, but now he takes a keen interest in dancing. He also likes to listen to music. He can now fold clothes. Earlier he was not able to fold even a handkerchief, but now he can easily fold blankets. He helps me in cutting vegetable and in cooking too. Goes to the market store for purchases. He passed his 10th grade. There have been improvements in many other aspects as well. For example, his emotional quotient has also increased. Now he hugs us very affectionately, calls me mother. Now he takes tuitions of other special kids.
So, if you listen carefully to the last part, it said he's now started taking tuitions for special needs kids. That's mainly the deaf. So, a child who was a special needs kid himself has not only now got into the normal education system, but is now teaching other special needs kids. That is the wonder and beauty of stem cells. Now, let's look at cerebral palsy. Now, cerebral palsy also there is a damage to the brain, and there are different types. In cerebral palsy, the effect is more on the body. In autism, the effect is more on the mind. You could have half one side of the body affected, it's called hemiplegia, and there are different types: diplegia, quadriplegia, athetoid, etc. This depends on the type of damage there is to the brain. And here you can see the scan, you can see the damage is far more extensive. So in autism, it was a lighter blue. In CP, it is actually black, it is a little darker. There are various medical treatments, there are some medicines that we can use, but despite this, our child remains severely limited. There are some surgical procedures, orthopedic procedures that can help in restoring some degree of function. But what are the clinical results? So this is our data from 660 patients. Again, we have so far treated more than 2,000. The data analyzed is of 660, and again, 20% have had significant improvement. That means they have gone back to near to normal life. They have no clinical evidence of the cerebral palsy. 41% have moderate improvement. That means they are now independent. 30% have mild, and 9% haven't improved. Now, in CP, there is no age correlation. Okay, in autism, there was an age correlation. The younger the child, the better results. Here, the results depend on the degree of brain damage. So if the brain damage is more extensive, there may be less improvement. If the brain damage is less, you have more significant improvement. And these are the symptoms that improve: oromotor, balance, trunk, upper limb, lower limb, muscle tone, ambulation, activities of daily living. And here a scan, you can see above, you can see the blue is the brain damage, and you can see it's more severe than in autism. It's on both sides. And post-treatment, you can see it is significantly reduced. The scan below is of the post-treatment. Again, on the left-hand side, you can see the scan which is showing the blue brain damage. And after stem cell therapy, you can see that's almost completely resolved and disappeared. So you can repair the brain damage. That's my message to you. Okay, our children need not suffer anymore. We can help them. And this work is published. This is a clinical study, autologous bone marrow cells for cerebral palsy. It wasn't the world's first paper. Somebody had published before that. But again, all our work is published in scientific journals. And we have 8 other papers apart from that paper. And let's just see a video. Here is this 14-year-old boy from Kenya who had spastic quadriplegic CP. He underwent stem cell therapy. Now you can see before he was totally wheelchair bound, and now he can remove a shirt, he can take off a shirt, he's able to pack a bag with both hands. His motor improvement now. Earlier he could not even stand. Okay, he was totally wheelchair bound. Now not only can he stand, he's using his hands. He took out a bottle of water and he could drink it. And now you can see he's walking independently. So from being totally wheelchair bound, okay, within a year of stem cells, this child is able to use his hands as well as walk by himself. So, okay, so now we have, after CP, we'll quickly look at muscular dystrophy. This is a condition where the muscles degenerate, and you can see above at 5 years, you can see the gray is muscle, and by the time they are 16, the muscle is totally gone. It's replaced by fat, which appears white. So you can see how it is at 5 years, and you can see at 21 years, there's almost no muscle in the body. It's completely gone. And those of these cases of Duchenne muscular dystrophy, all of them, 100% of them, they die by the time they're 25. All of them die. So these are the results over here. We've again treated more than 2,500 patients. This is data from 1,500. The significant improvement is much smaller. It's just 4.5%. Moderate improvement is 35, mild is 20, stable is 14. But what you have to remember is that if the children had not been treated, all of them would have deteriorated. So even if they become stable, that's good news because we've saved their life. And this is a graphic just to show you the above green graph is those cases of Duchenne muscular dystrophy who took stem cells, and you can see that we stabilized them and we compared them to patients who did not take, and you can see that they have a progressive deterioration. So big difference between those who take stem cells and those who don't. And this is just a scan to show you above. You can see MRI, which is white, and below you can see post-stem cell muscle regeneration has happened. This is an EMG study. You can see the wave patterns. They're very weak, and after stem cells, the wave pattern has become small. And we have 18 scientific papers on this. Let's just see the story of this child, 8-year-old boy from the United States, Duchenne muscular dystrophy, totally wheelchair bound. He could hardly crawl. You can see before he can barely crawl. Okay, he could not even sit or stand, and now you can see after the stem cell therapy, he's able to stand. Okay, he's able to stand by himself. First time he stood in 2 years. He had not stood before that. Not only stand, but you can see initially he starts walking with some degree of support with the walker, and he's walking, and then he can start walking between parallel bars. Now there's no walker; he's just holding his hands. Uh, and now you can see he's walking without any help. He's first walking indoors, and now you can see that he's walking outdoors. And this is amazing, and he's doing very well in school. He's on top of his school. And then because of this, he actually requested a meeting with President Obama, and he got invited to meet the President of the United States. Okay, this is earlier, so that is the kind of improvement that he had. An intellectual disability, what was earlier called mental retardation. Here again, you can see the damages of a different type. These are our results. 20% significant, 25% moderate, 39 mild, 13% did not improve. Their memory, problem solving, relationships, social inhibition, toilet training, all of these improve. Here's a scan above. You can see the brain damage. Blue is the damage, and below you can see that the damage is resolved. And this is the world's first paper on stem cell therapy in intellectual disability. It's been published by us, and this very clearly shows the beneficial effects. This is a 26-year-old child who underwent ID, and she was very aggressive at poor understanding. And you can see the different improvements. You can see the changes that are there. There was a difficulty in copying, and you can see how fast she is now. You can see the difference in the performance in writing, and the coordination is improved. And
very nice. Smells good, looks good,
won a prize at
and with stew, perfect combination.
and won a second prize at a very prestigious cooking competition. All right. So, spinal cord injury, we've again, this is data from 1,000 patients, although we've treated again over 2,000. 24% of our patients had significant improvement, 3% did not improve. These are people who are paralyzed. They're either paraplegic, that means they have no function in their legs, they're totally wheelchair bound, or they are quadriplegic, that means the hands and legs are damaged. And these are the symptoms that improve the tightness of their legs, sensation, bladder, bowel, posture, wheelchair to walking, etc. This is a paper which uh, uh, showed the improvement in dorsolumbar injury. That's injury in the middle of the spine because of which both the legs get damaged. And we showed the beneficial effects. We have 5 scientific papers. And here is a small video. There was this 26-year-old soldier who was shot by terrorists in Kashmir. He was his spinal cord was injured, and before he could not even sit. And now you can see that he's able to, you can see a difference before and after. And now you can see afterwards he's able to, earlier he could hardly move, and now he can get onto a wheelchair himself. He can transfer from wheelchair to a car. And when this young man came to me, what he told me was, you can see he's walking. And he told me, Doc, make me good enough so I can get a gun in my hand and go back and fight again. He was awarded the most prestigious award in India, Shaurya Chakra. He also won a bronze medal in shooting, and he joined back active service. So what he had asked me was, Doc, make me good enough so I can join back duty. And we fulfilled our promise. We treated him, and he was taken back on duty. The army does not take back people who are paralyzed with spinal cord injury, but he improved so much that he was taken back into active duty. A brain stroke. Very often people have a brain stroke with which they get paralyzed on one side of their body, and this is our results, which shows 51% people had significant improvement, 3% did not improve. The scan above shows the damage, and the scan below shows the improvement. You can see there was so much damage, and you can see the damage is much less. We have 5 scientific papers, and here is a patient who was a teacher. She had right-sided paralysis. She was unable to walk independently. She lost a job, and now you can see the change before stem cell and after. She's able to get up by herself. And she told me one thing. She told me, Doc, I want to get back to teaching. I love teaching kids. And she improved so much. There you can see her upper limb is improved, her lower limb is improved. Earlier, she could barely walk, and now you can see she's walking independently without any stick, without a cane. She's able to climb stairs. Uh, and, you know, and she's gone back to teaching. So that's the most satisfying that, she's back to her job. She was totally paralyzed after a brain stroke. She had lost a job, but the improvement was so much that she could go back to teaching. So you have patients of head injury because of road traffic accidents or falls. And again, these are the results, 29% significant improvement, 5% don't improve. And you can see the damage before on the left-hand side, and afterwards, you can see that the damage has significantly improved. And again, this work is published in a scientific paper. Then there is a condition called motor neuron disease where people get, they hands and legs get paralyzed. They are unable to breathe, swallow, speak. And this is we did a comparative study, and we found that patients who we treated, they stabilized, and untreated patients deteriorate. So this is a condition where 90% of the patients they die within 5 years, and with our treatment we are able to halt that, and we've had patients who are now living for 10 years and even longer. And this is our so medicine we have something called a control study. A control study is something where you compare treated patients versus untreated patients, and we showed that our treated patients improved much more. So the red is normally how the disease deteriorates, but with our treatment we showed that we could stabilize it. So these are just some graphics of the same thing.
I am Dr. Himangi Sani, a graduate from CGS Medical College and KM Hospital, and MD from New York Medical College. I was practicing as a consultant in New York when I developed motor neuron disorder. I started deteriorating neurologically, and so I consulted the best doctors in America, including John Hopkins, who told me there was no hope and this was a fatal disease. Then I came to India and approached Dr. Alok Sharma, who treated me with stem cells 10 years ago. After stem cell therapy, there has been halting of disease progression and improvement in speech, swallowing, and stamina. I have improved significantly and now working as head of research at New Brain and Spine Institute.
So there was a doctor who was told in America that she's going to die, and she came to India. She took treatment. It's 10 years from now. She's improved so much that she's actually working with us. So one question in our mind is, well, if this treatment is so great, are there any risks involved? So the answer is no. There are no major adverse events or complications. None of our patients have deteriorated neurologically. There are some minor adverse events, like 3% of our patients who already have epilepsy, they may have an increase in epilepsy in the first 2 months. 10% of our patients get a headache, which lasts for 2 or 3 days only and it goes away. Some kids may have nausea, vomiting, pain at the injection site, but these are minor and reversible. So this is the institute, the Nugent Brain and Spine Institute, where the treatment happens. We have treated over 10,000 patients from 70 different countries from across the world. So from all the 6 continents of the planet, patients have come to us for treatment. This is our core team along with myself. There is Dr. Nandini, and who's the Deputy Director, Dr. Jacob, who's India's senior most neurorehabilitation expert, Dr. Prerna, who's again a stem cell expert, and Dr. Himangi, who looks after our research. You just heard from her. We believe in quality, so we have a lot of quality standards. We are ISO certified. We have a good laboratory and a good manufacturing practice certification. This is our stem cell lab, and it's among the best equipped in the world. It's got the most finest equipment. We have accreditation from the European Medical Association, the EMA, for best medical practice. And you get this when your quality standards match with European standards. So we are certified by the EMA. We have published 18 books. We believe that stem cell therapy works along with rehab and various integrative treatments and require a multidisciplinary team. We have received numerous recognitions like the Rose of Paracelsus Award. It's one of very, very prestigious award from the Socrates Nomination Committee of Oxford. And this was given for our work on stem cells and neurological condition. We got the European Award for Best Practices in 2018. Again, this is for our research. This is an award that I received in the British Parliament, the Bharat Gaurav Award for work done by somebody from India in the international field. We were given the Best Stem Cell Therapy Center Award in 2016. Again, in 2018, we got this has been given to us by the Minister of Health from New Delhi, awarded us the Best Stem Cell Therapy Center in India, and we were given the Best Stem Cell Therapy Center in the State Award as well. So to help you make the decision, you could visit our website, which is www.neurogenbsi.com. You could email us, and we have a response time of less than 30 minutes. So you will get a reply within 30 minutes of your email. You can send us WhatsApp messages, audio, video call. You could call us at this number that is listed, or you could set up a Skype interview or WhatsApp video interview with prior appointment through our website or directly. Once you have decided you want to take the treatment, we appoint a coordinator who will become your one point of contact. So then you're not dealing with 10 people. One person will help you through the whole process, will help you with your visa, will help you with everything till you get here. And once you get here, we arrange a pickup from the airport and you're taken to a hospital. So once you decide you're coming, we take over everything and we'll support you in the whole process. During your stay, you arrive on Sunday, and like I said, our staff will be at the airport to receive you, and we will bring you directly to the hospital. Sunday is a day of rest. On Monday, we do all the evaluations and the tests. Tuesday is the actual stem cell therapy. Wednesday to Saturday is rehabilitation and all the integrative therapies, and Saturday is the discharge. So you have to spend 7 days with us. How safe and easy is it to travel now during these pandemic times from Africa to India? So let's just look at what a patient told us. This is the experience of a patient from Zambia.
My full name is Lorraine Namponde Banda. I use Banda because I'm married. I am from Kitwe, Zambia. Zambia is a country in Africa, Central Africa. That's where I am coming from. I came on the 27th of November from Lusaka, Zambia, via Dar es Salaam in Tanzania to Mumbai, which is in India. I brought my son to the Neurogen Institute, Brain and Spine Institute in Maharashtra. From Zambia to India, I traveled safely. All that is required to die safe for a person around this time of the COVID year to travel is to have the COVID certificates, which I did. We managed to get them on time to travel. So traveling from Zambia to Dar es Salaam was all right. They did not ask a lot of issues other than the exemption certificate from the Neurogen Center. That's the very most important document. That one has got to have in order to travel. Otherwise, they don't allow anyone on the plane. So once they saw that one from Lusaka, Zambia, they asked the same. Even in Mumbai, when I arrived, it was the same document. The Neurogen team have been very, very excellent in as far as giving documentation is concerned. They are efficient. They produce the information right on time. They never delayed. In my preparations, I had them on time. The Neurogen Institute, the Neurogen Center is very, very accommodating staff. In my country, they are just giving visas for medical travel. It doesn't matter where you're going, but it has to be a medical visa. That medical visa is issued to the person who is traveling, who is sick, as well as the attendant to attendant. So the airports are not congested as before. The airports are just okay, but still there are a lot of people traveling.
So that was just to show you that it's possible to travel now from Africa. You can come. What we understand is there are flights from Dar es Salaam. We also believe there are flights from Dubai. So Emirates, a lot of our patients, we have patients coming regularly from all over Africa, and they're choosing Dar es Salaam and Dubai. So you have to transit in one of these. Uh, some places have direct flights to India, but not all. I think from Kenya we have direct flights, and for a few places there are direct flights. So what's different about us? I mean, why should you come to New Zealand? Why should you travel all the way from Africa during this pandemic time to come here? One is that we have the largest number of scientific publications, right? So that's old data. We are now 101. We have whenever international book or editors, when they want to introduce a chapter on stem cell, they invite us. So why should international book editors, when they want to write a chapter on stem cell therapy for autism or CP, when there are people all over the world, they are inviting us. Because we are the only stem cell therapy center in the world that treats neuro cases only. Every single other stem cell therapy center in the world treats everything: liver, heart disease, bone. We treat only neurological patients. Also, we use the very safe autologous stem cells, and we inject them intrathecally, so they are safe. There's no risk. We combine stem cell therapy with comprehensive rehab and integrative treatments. We have treated over 10,000 patients from 70 different countries. We have a 10-year experience. We have a team of very senior and experienced professionals. We are constantly researching and trying to get new things. And our work is approved and monitored by a government certified institutional ethics committee. So, there is an oversight to our work. And I like to, end with the same slide that I showed you. Right now, we are doing rehab on damaged brain of our children. What we should do is get it repaired through stem cell therapy and see the improvements. So now, in addition to that, cellular therapy is being used for anti-aging purposes, and the definition of anti-aging is to prevent the preventable, and delay the inevitable. So death is inevitable, but can we delay it? And some diseases like brain stroke, cancers are preventable, so can we prevent them? And anti-aging combines modern medicine technology with ancient Indian systems, and you can treat a whole lot of disorders. From diabetes, obesity, menopause, osteoarthritis, etc. And now we are using this with, we are combining these treatments for our integrative treatments for children with autism and CP as well. So the most important of this is something called hyperbaric oxygen. This is a chamber in which the mother and the child will go inside, and you just lie down there. There's a television screen. You can watch TV. You can go to sleep. And here, oxygen is put under high pressure, so it gets into the whole system, and it helps in improving brain function. So we believe a lot in hyperbaric oxygen. We started using ozone therapy. So oxygen is O2 and ozone is O3. and there are different ways. This is one way. We can, in children, we don't put them in the chamber, we just give it through the ears and correctly. So it's a very powerful gas that actually helps in improvement. We believe in cleansing the gut, so we have hydrocolon therapy that removes the toxins from the gut. We have something called cryotherapy, which is a chamber in which the temperature is brought down, and that helps in reversing inflammation. We have an infrared sauna that actually also helps. We give high dose intravenous vitamins. So all these treatments combined, these are also added. So you don't just get stem cell therapy here. We get all these treatments together. So my conclusion is that adult stem cell therapy may be considered a safe and effective treatment option for autism and CP and many other conditions that affect the brain and spine, which cause paralysis, for which presently there is no other treatment. If you notice here, I've said safe and effective. I put safe before effective. So you have to have no fear that there is any risk or danger in this treatment. So earlier, you were lost, and there was, you had a diagnosis, and then you only gave rehab. And what I'm telling you now is now there's a new ray of hope, and we can help our children get back to a normal life. And I like to always quote Mahatma Gandhi, who said, "To believe what has not occurred in history will not occur at all, is to argue disbelief in the dignity of man." Mahatma Gandhi said, just because something has never happened before doesn't mean it will never happen again. So, the medical world believes autism, CP is incurable, untreatable. And I'm here to tell you that that's not true anymore, right? And I like to end with this little short speech from President Obama. There was a time, many years ago, stem cell therapy, was banned in America, and then President Obama lifted it. And this is what he had to say.
Scientists believe these tiny cells may have the potential to help us understand and possibly cure some of our most devastating diseases and conditions, to regenerate the severed spinal cord and lift someone from a wheelchair, to spur insulin production and spare a child from a lifetime of needles, to treat Parkinson's, cancer, heart disease, and others that affect millions of Americans and the people who love them. Today, with the executive order I am about to sign, we will bring the change that so many scientists and researchers, doctors and innovators, patients and loved ones have hoped for and fought for these past 8 years. We will lift the ban on federal funding for promising embryonic stem cell research. There's no finish line in the work of science. The race is always with us. The urgent work of giving substance to hope and answering those many bedside prayers, of seeking a day when words like terminal and incurable are potentially retired from our vocabulary.
So I'd like to thank you for your attention. I know that much longer than you may have anticipated. Now I'm open to any questions.